Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pitstop Fracas. I hope you guys are all keeping well. I'm your host today, Anik, and I'm joined by Chris, Kwame, Antz, and Mahad. We've got a lot to get through today, and we'll be touching on the early season form of Ferrari and McLaren, as well as a deep dive into the career thus far of Sebastian Vettel, as well as touching on some recent podiums in Formula One. So yeah, let me get into it with our panelists. We got a new debutant on the pod this week, and we've been strictly told by Touchline Media Group the transfer window is now slammed shut. We've got no more entrants that are joining us on Pitstop Fracas. So I'm going to come to you first, Antz. How are you doing? Tell us a bit about yourself. Why you're into Formula One? Don't tell us who you support in football, but tell us who your favorite driver or car is.
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad, thank you. I guess better late than never to make your debut. I'd say, yeah, along with probably most people on here, favorite driver Hamilton, favorite team McLaren, I would say, but then also I guess Mercedes to a lesser extent. And yeah, I've been into F1 for probably like 13, 14 years now. So yeah, it'll be good to get into this pod.
Nice. Lovely to have you on. Mahad, how you keeping? How's Easter weekend treating you?
Nice sunshine, just living life. Don't know why this break for the F1's going on. This is ridiculous. You can't just have a race like Bahrain and then say, "Oh, we'll give you a race next month." Yeah, it's not a good look. Give us it every 2 weeks, or don't give it. Yeah, but I you know what? I shouldn't be too greedy because back end of the season we've got a lot of triple headers, so I look forward to that anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait for it. And to be fair, that was such an enthralling race, and we still got some topics to touch on from that Bahrain Grand Prix. Kwame, how you keeping? How's Easter weekend been treating you?
Good, brother. I'm good. So, yeah, it's been a good weekend. I mean, yeah, it's a bit shame, F1's on this break right now. I mean, back to my other sport, football, which is my main other sport. And I'm not gonna talk about that. It's an F1 pod. We should talk about F1. So I just can't wait for the next race, to come up.
Yeah, no worries, man. We'll and I want to come to you especially on especially the former Ferrari this year. So we'll be coming onto that. Last but not least, Chris, how you keeping?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. We had some technical difficulties at the start of the pod with your internet connection. So now we switch to your phone. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can have you right the way to the very end. All good on your side? That's good. That's what we like to hear. Yeah, that's good. We can already see a bit of lag. Hopefully we can keep you now till the end of the pod, mate. Anyway, guys, let's get straight into it. That was such an exciting Bahrain race, and we couldn't obviously cram it into the hour that we had in terms of reviewing that. So there was a couple of items that we discussed in the group chat and what we wanted to touch on in this pod. One of them was the form of McLaren. Now they've done really well in pre-season testing. They showed signs of it in the Bahrain Grand Prix. Let me come to you, Mahad, on this. How are you finding McLaren this year? I know it's only one race. I know we've only had a bit of pre-season testing, but what's your early thoughts on
them? Shameless McLaren fan here again. Anytime it comes up, I'm going to speak about them. Pre-season, fantastic. The car and the new Mercedes engine inside it looks like a perfect fit. This little diffuser innovation they've done on the back of their car as well, where they've kind of elongated it to a kind of a zigzag shape. They kind of got bent the rules a little bit in terms of the diffuser, but I feel like that innovation's really helped the car and it's pushed them towards the top of the grid. When we're talking about the midfield battle, I think they're beyond that now. I think they're going to cement themselves into third place, especially with the form of Aston Martin. In the race as well, Lando Norris, such an assured performance from him in Bahrain. It seems like he's getting better and better over the years. We forget how young he is. He's a very young man. and he's quite a big seat for a young person as well. And I felt like his performance was on point when it came to Bahrain. P4, Ricardo as well. Ricardo did quite well considering he had damage to his car. He still nursed it home to a points finish. And as over time, as he gets used to the car, because it's a different setup to Renault, we can assume that he's going to have better performances in that McLaren, and they're going to be challenging him and Lando for points finishes and podiums. So it's looking all positive in the McLaren camp, considering that they haven't got tokens to improve the car over the season, and they really need to get a good start and get points on the board. So yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, it's funny you touched on that tokens point there, because that's definitely something I think that will prove key as the season goes on. They need to sort of get that head start, and it'll be interesting definitely to see how it pans out. And another question on McLaren. So Lando Norris this week came out and said, what did he say? I had the article. Yeah, he suggested that they can beat Ferrari in the race trim, but in qualifying they're struggling a bit. Do you think, based on that, they can do a lot in terms of improving that qualifying performance, even though they've not got the tokens left?
I
Or do you
don't know how
reckon
they
it's
can
just
do
the
that.
case? Yeah,
I'm not sure. Maybe they've got a problem with one lap pace, but they're good over a long race in terms of speed and maintaining that. But they're usually quite good at qualifying, which is a bit. I don't know how it's gone a bit backwards for them, but we'll have to see how it just pans out later on down the line. But I don't think they can make any drastic innovations to improve their qualities. But in terms of racing, we've got two guys that love to overtake. So even if they don't qualify well, they'll get themselves back up on the grid anyway. Yeah,
definitely. And as long as there's some on-track action, we at Pitstop, we're always here for that. So I suppose touching on another team that done really well in qualifying in Bahrain, I think they actually qualified third quickest, Ferrari. And I think Leclerc qualified fourth in Bahrain. So they showed real signs of improvement this year. And I know, again, it's only early stages, but Kwame, have you seen anything from them? Where have they got this pace from? Like they were nowhere last year when it came to straight line speed. What do you reckon's happened this year for them?
I mean, if the rumors are true, then I think it could potentially be in the engine. I mean, there was rumors going around testing around when the cars were launched this year that the Ferrari engine last year was illegal. No, not illegal. Sorry, the Ferrari engine last year were the one in 2019 were illegal, so they had a punishment in 2020, so the engines weren't as powerful. So this year they'd be more powerful, and they've obviously put more emphasis and time into the engine. And pretty sure one of the tokens they spent was on their gearbox, so that have led to their engine and their car being much more faster this year. And I also think like the drive lamp as well could be a factor as well. Which we'll talk about later about Seb. I mean, I'm not getting anything onto Seb here, but I think with Sainz, he's been very close to Leclerc. And Sainz just joined, and I think Sainz, I mean, his personal life is a bit questionable, but as a driver, he's definitely underrated, and you can't deny that. Especially when he was racing against experienced drivers, Alonso and the old Ferrari driver in Vettel in Bahrain. Leclerc getting a comfortable P6, I'm pretty sure. P6 just under Perez and Norris, which is not too bad, especially as I believe McLaren are comfortably the third best team at the moment. I think Ferrari are fourth, and we know how good Red Bull is and how Perez came from the back of the fields up to fifth, and then obviously he had Sainz again, he was eighth, just behind Ricciardo in the second McLaren. So I think the battle for first can be interesting between the McLaren and Ferrari, but I definitely think Ferrari's one lap pace is very, very good. It's just how they do their strategy. Ferrari like to follow the bag a lot of times, so hopefully they just keep up.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see there. And you touched on it with Sainz and Leclerc there. That's definitely a battle between the team that'll be interesting to see how it sort of pans out across the year. So Binotto came out this week and he said that he's happy by the progress, although he said they're not going to be going for podiums. So I don't know, is he bluffing? Is he just playing games? Where do you see them progressing as the season goes on, Antz?
Yeah, I think that's quite realistic of Binotto to say that, because if you look at like Red Bull, probably the strongest team at the moment on one lap pace, and Mercedes are going to be there and thereabouts on race pace with level with Red Bull. So that's already kind of four positions kind of locked out, assuming that they have no problems during the race. So I think for Ferrari, their best bet is to try and capitalize upon those races where it goes a little bit awry for the front runners and try and get into that podium position, a bit like we saw in Turkey last year when Leclerc and Vettel were kind of dicing out for the podium on the last lap, and I think Vettel ended up getting on the podium. So yeah, I think their position at the moment is pretty much about where they finished in Bahrain, so kind of like the top of the midfield type of area, comfortably top 10, I would say. I would hope, if they can keep it up for the rest of the season.
Yep, and the same for you then. Just to wrap this up, Chris, do you reckon come the end of the year they'll be challenging for podiums, Ferrari?
Not this year. I don't think this year they'll be challenging for podiums unless Red Bull or Mercedes have a complete mess up. But I think they'll be there or thereabouts. Like they're much improved from last year. They've fixed a lot of the problems from last year's car. So I feel like this year they'll be with the McLarens, AlphaTauris for batting for third place.
Yep, brilliant. Yeah, look, let's see how it pans out. It's still early days, so there's a lot of work to do. There's still improvements that's going to be made to other cars. Drivers are going to get more used to the machines that they're driving. So yeah, we'll wait and see again how that pans out across the year. So moving on to a driver then who recently raced for Ferrari, Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. And there was a lot of talk in our group chat, as well as the back end of last year, and just across Twitter really, about his time at Red Bull. He hasn't reached those heights since being at Ferrari. What we've seen of him at Racing Point thus far is really not looking like he will be reaching those heights. Obviously, it remains to be seen whether that will be the case. But we always love a bit of nostalgia, which is why we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into Vettel's career to date. And I suppose it's worth starting off with his time at Red Bull. That was where he really made himself where he was. I know he had, I think it was a year at Toro Rosso, and then in 2009 he moved to Red Bull, and that was really where he cemented his place, sort of as a household name. Winning 4 world titles. So Mahad, the older head. Let me come to you. How would you assess Vettel's time at Red Bull?
I'd say it was a success, obviously, 4-time world champion. But I don't know how much we can attribute it to Vettel or just the success of Red Bull overall and that vehicle that they had. That's where the question marks lie. Obviously, if you win 4 titles, you've won 4 titles. That's not something that you could take away from him or anything like that. But we sometimes, even it happens the same with Lewis, they try to attribute the success to the car rather than the individual themselves. With that car, we have to understand how dominant that car was in that era. There was no car that was even coming close to it in terms of pace in that era. They actually dominated. In terms of Vettel, the highlight seasons for me were probably 2011, 2013. Nobody was trying to in them years. Nobody. It wasn't really. It was a non-contest. Even his own teammate. So I feel like that was the outliers. In terms of the other seasons where Alonso's really pushed him, and I think, how many points did he win by? He won by barely any points. There were really, really tight gaps between him and Alonso. I think it was
2012. I think
So you're
we
talking
went
about
down to the last.
3 points, 4 points. these are really tight margins. Even now, if you consider if Hamilton won the title by like 4 points like last year, people would be like, that's proper tight. And for you to be in a car that's that dominant and to win barely, the Ferrari I don't think was good of Alonso. Alonso was outperforming that car. To that, Ferrari was like putting him in situations where it was making it really, really tough for him to win. And Vettel eked it out a little bit. So there are question marks. I feel like F1 community in the whole don't want to talk about these things. They don't want to be critical of anything about any driver at all. You're not allowed to be critical. But I feel like there are question marks around it, especially what's happened after he's left Red Bull and the change of regulations. Even when the change of regulations happened and he was still at Red Bull, Daniel Ricciardo came into that situation and absolutely dominated Vettel. So we're talking about what I want to highlight is how the regulations favored not only Red Bull, but favored Vettel's driving style. And he wasn't able to adapt to a new era. But I'll let somebody else go, but I've got further points on that.
Yeah, let me come to you on this, Chris. Why was that car? Why was Red Bull so good? Like, there's no doubt in it. We saw it in 2011. We saw in 2013. He was winning the championship at Cantor. You know, Vettel and that car worked hand in hand. And I don't want to take anything away from that. They won it fair and square, but they utterly dominated the championship. Why was that car? And why was Vettel so good?
Well, reading up about it, because, you know, I do some research, they found that the car suited Vettel's driving style. So he likes a car that turns in really well and has a stable rear end. So in that era and that time, the car was really stable towards the rear, and it was easy for him to drive to the way he wants to drive. Even though, like, I say this, in some of those years, he didn't have the best car. He just had the car that was able to win him the championship. So, like in 2012, McLaren were the fastest, but that car just broke down at every possible moment. So he was just like the de facto guy who picked up points when it's possible. But, you know, through that 4-year run, like especially in 2013, where the car was really to his favor, we saw what happened. He dominated and won clearly because it was stable. Then with the new rule change in 2014, you see that the car was a bit more slippy towards the end and there's more of a fight. He struggled. It's the same thing with Ferrari. So in 2017 and 18, the car was stable and he put up championship fights. He didn't win, but he looked so much better. Then in 2019, where the car was a bit more of a handful, he struggled and looked full. So that's the kind of thing. Like, he needs cars that are very stable to be able to go fast.
Yeah. I feel as though he had a stable car under him. Even though, like in 2012, McLaren, you know, may have had the fastest car, but I think right up until 2013, I think Red Bull in general just had the bit between their teeth when it came to that. I think it was a V10 engine. Was it V10? Kwame, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was a V10 engine. And they just had the bit between their teeth. And then in 2014, when it changed to the turbo hybrid era, he was struggling. You know, his teammate changed. Webber was no longer his teammate. Daniel Ricciardo came in, and across that season, Daniel Ricciardo got 3 victories, and Vettel didn't get any in 2014. We saw him really, really struggling. I remember there was a couple of battles that he was having midfield with Alonso, who was actually driving in the Ferrari, and I was like, oh, this is not the Seb Vettel we knew, and we were just seeing Hamilton and Rosberg dicing it out at the front. Kwame, let me come to you on this. What changed in 2014 from a technical, mechanical car point of view? What changed, and why did that not suit the Red Bull?
Yeah, so just before I just correct you, Anik, as well. It was V8s, not V10s.
It was V8s. Yeah, it was V8s.
So same difference. But I think that's the main difference. The engines really and truly, because with Red Bull they were under Renault, and Renault's engines weren't really the most powerful, and they were quite unreliable, as I think people remember from back then. There's a lot of beef between Red Bull and Christian Horner and the Renault camp as well, which is one of the reasons why they left in the end. No, they even left. They changed the name of the engines to Takura, and then they left to Honda. and they've become dominant. But I feel like back then, in that era, in that 2010, 2014 era, the cars were very more aerodynamically kind of based. And that's where you have guys like Adrian Newey, who just been a boss of that. We're doing it at McLaren with Mika at the time, 98, 99, done before at Williams, during the 90s era. Them guys were pushing it with like Villeneuve, Damon Hill, them guys there. So I feel like the regulations just changed it for Red Bull because it no longer was a era based on aerodynamics and like the different stuff like F ducts or the double DRS system or all them things there. It was instead just how powerful your car is, and that's how you had teams like Williams out of nowhere coming from the back end to like in 2014, you had people like Bottas and like Massa, both drivers who, you know, in the GC we debate about a lot, who say, oh, Dana here, we're getting podiums because that car was that powerful. And the Red Bull didn't have that. And especially like Chris and Mahad said as well, especially when they changed the car as well, to compensate with that, it was a bit more draggy, a bit more back-endy, a bit more flicky at the back end. It just didn't work out for Vettel after that, I think.
Yeah. It's a good thing you touched on that. Yeah, I remember that Williams was quick in 2014. I remember them giving the Mercedes a tough time in Austria. And I was really wanting Hamilton to win that race. But yeah, definitely the Williams were very good that year. So just finishing up on his time at Red Bull, Antz, I'm going to come to you on this. Daniel Ricciardo. So he switched teammates from Mark Webber to Daniel Ricciardo. And Daniel Ricciardo actually finished 71 points ahead of Vettel in 2014. Do you think that was down to Vettel not performing against his teammate? Do you reckon that was just Daniel Ricciardo being that much better than Vettel? Or do you reckon that was just Daniel Ricciardo being that much better than Webber? What was your take on that sort of inter-team rivalry that they had?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one. I'd say probably that was probably the best time for Ricciardo to come into the team when the regulations changed, and he had like, I wouldn't say an advantage, but he was coming in on more of a level playing field with Vettel in 2014, whereas Webber for the previous 4 years had kind of been in the same position, same regulations, just kind of getting beaten by Vettel year in, year out. So it is scary from Vettel's point of view that Ricciardo just came in and had him on tilt for the whole season. Like, it's just something that you can't really take away from Ricciardo. He's a great driver. He's quick, and yeah, Vettel really struggled that year. But does it tarnish his legacy a little bit? But at the same time, 4 out of 4 wide world titles before that, it's like you can't really argue with it. And it's just, I think probably in that year he probably felt a little bit that the team went away from him slightly, because in the previous 4 years with Webber, was pretty much the de facto number 2 driver, and he had Helmut Marko completely, who pretty much has the power in that Red Bull team, was pretty much behind Vettel in those times. And you can kind of see echoes of it now with Max Verstappen. But so I think probably the decision to leave was triggered a little bit by how comfortably Ricciardo beat him that year.
Yeah, he did quite comfortably beat him, which you know many considered quite embarrassing at the time. I remember that time, and I was like, oh my god, Vettel, like, come on, I'm expecting better for you. But to be honest, in 2014, I was just more concerned about Hamilton winning the title over Rosberg. I suppose Ferrari really did want to get that world title though, so they secured Vettel's services at the start of 2015. Now, instead of sort of going chronologically through it, just want to pick out your key highlights from Vettel and his time at Ferrari. So let me come to you first on this, Chris. What have you made from Vettel and his time at Ferrari, and especially the mistakes that he's made? Talking about Singapore, in 2017 when he crashed out on the first lap with Verstappen and Raikkonen, when he crashed out in Germany 2018, some of the collisions he's had with Leclerc. It'll be good to get your thoughts on that. Chris, you there?
So with Ferrari, yeah, I'm here. With Ferrari, his mistakes, well, the first one was 100% in Germany 2018, because he had the race under his control and just binned it himself, and that, like, he was first in the at the time, and that completely and utterly like ruined all momentum he had. And that's when, you know, Hamilton and Mercedes made their strong charge towards the championship. So that for me was like the worst mistake. And I think that was the kind of the moment where I think Ferrari were ready to wash their hands of him as well. They were like, we've given you the car, now you're making mistakes. This ain't it. Like, you're not Michael. You're not that guy who's gonna deliver for us. So I think that was the pivotal moment. I think that's the biggest mistake.
Yeah, definitely. I remember that so well, that Germany 2018 race. I think Hamilton came back and you know, he performed heroically. Obviously, Vettel dumped it in the wall. Obviously, it was tricky conditions. Mahad, let me come to you on this. What do you make of those driving mistakes from Vettel when, you know, those DNFs? Is that the hallmarks of a champion?
Listen, yeah. Chris said it just now, yeah. He's not Michael. He was lauded like he was Michael when he was at Red Bull. Oh, look, German guy, 4 titles. He's gonna be reaching Michael levels and stuff like that. His mentality ain't there, man. If the team ain't behind him fully 100%, if it ain't optimal conditions where the car is set up exactly how he wants it and stuff like that, he's just not there. But Hamilton was playing absolute mind games with him from 17, 18. He was in his head completely. Right, he was lucky that he had a teammate and Raikkonen, because Raikkonen don't really care about F1. He was just there in it. So it's not really like he's got a teammate that's like really on him, sticking it on him like that. Yeah, but time and time again, Germany, Vettel crashed for Germany 2018. Vettel crashed under no duress. Yeah, Vettel got kettled. He just got. I don't know what happened to him, but it's all in his head. And just having that Mercedes behind him, Lewis pushing it, just gets to him. Especially with a season that's not really remembered was 2017. 2017, he had the lead up until just before Singapore for that crash. His head was gone. Lewis knew that his head was gone, and he was actually playing with her. Actually, his head went when it was Baku, when he crashed into the back of him in Baku. That's when his head was gone, because Vettel thinks like nothing that wasn't his fault. Vettel's like, oh yeah, I don't know. He brake checked me. What do you mean brake check? This is Formula One. This ain't go-karting. Yeah. I don't understand. So for me, it's a mentality thing. The second, even at Ferrari is not the most conducive environment for somebody's good mental health. They're very much a chaos factor team, and they'll throw you in the deep end and they'll throw you under the bus because it's Ferrari first. So when somebody like Leclerc comes in, they're like, oh shit, this guy's really, really good. Let's throw Vettel out of here because he ain't built like that. Leclerc outscored him first season at Ferrari. This is not good looks. I think as well with the Ferrari situation, when Bonotto became team principal, Bonotto is very much a person that's involved in the car. Vettel wants to have the optimal conditions for the car. And I know Bonotto's probably saying no. Bonotto's saying, no, we're not doing that for you. We're not going to do that for you. We're not going to do that for you, to make sure you're stable and so on, and make sure the car feels like a Red Bull from 2011. That's not really gonna be the case. Bonotto's going to have total control of that vehicle. And one thing that's underrated thing for Formula One drivers is to be adaptable, to change with the times and to change with what the mechanics and the engineers want you to be doing with the car. He shows no versatility or adaptability with these vehicles since he's left Red Bull. Even when the regulations changed, the way his driving style is very much, especially when it was at Red Bull, was, oh, I'm going to brake a bit earlier, I'm just going to coast to the corner, and then I'm just going to target the car and then just stick the throttle on and go around the corner that way and get fast exits. When it was the hybrid era, you cannot do that. And he just couldn't comprehend it. he just kept on doing it, and that's why you always hear about Vettel spun out on that corner. I feel like he does change it a little bit, and then when the pressure comes on, he goes back to his old driving style, and then realizes, oh, I'm in a hybrid car, I can't do that, and then he spins out, or he does dumb mistakes and so on. And there's a little bit of petulance to his driving style as well. We even saw it in the other day in Bahrain when he just went into the back of Ocon, and then he pretends like, oh yeah, I have every right. Or he came into my driving lane or whatever. The guy, he's just chatting shit. But I don't think his time at Ferrari was successful at all. That's my opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, no. Look, I have to say I definitely agree with you there. Look, he was brought in to win and deliver a world championship. He didn't do that. He didn't even deliver constructors for them. And in even a couple of those seasons, they had the best car. There's no doubt about it. In 2018, they had the best package, without a doubt. And it was down to himself and the team and even his co-driver, Raikkonen as well, that they didn't deliver, because I remember that season quite well, and they were very, very strong. They had the best package, and even Martin Brundle said it as well. I think just before the French Grand Prix, he goes, this team has got the best package, and I can see them winning it. Now, Antz, I'm going to come to you on this. So there was a trend forming when he was at Ferrari, early 2017, early 2018, even early 2019. He seemed to always get a good start in the championship. He seemed to have the bit between his teeth, and then it just falls flat on its face. Now, do you feel as though the weight of expectation was just too much for him during his time at Ferrari?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I find it hard to say that, because if you look back on his time at Red Bull in 2010 and 2012, when the championship was going down to the last race of the season, and he delivered, he got the points he needed to secure the title. What more pressure is there than that last race of the season? You got to deliver. So when it comes to kind of him, like in inverted commas, bottling those championships at Ferrari, well, I would put it down more to the fact that I think he's a very emotional driver, right? And because of that, as Mahad touched on it, he's quite petulant as well sometimes. I think when he gets in the cockpit, sometimes the red mist just descends upon him, and sometimes he can't really force himself to see the bigger picture. And that's where the mistakes start to creep in. And I think at Ferrari, we saw that quite clearly in the spotlight. When it started to get to the second half of the season, he would make these mistakes or have these run-ins with drivers like Verstappen in 2018. He had a few, even Bottas as well. And I guess in Baku with Hamilton, quite clear as day, where, yeah, his emotions would just get the better of him. And I think in those kind of championships where Mercedes and Hamilton were just consistent and always fighting for podiums and victories, those odd little slip-ups from Vettel, he couldn't really recover from them. So that's really what I would put it down to be honest.
Yep. No, yeah, I suppose there's a bit of that as well. I mean, to be honest with you, I thought at times he was a bit petulant as well. But personally, if I was to assess his time at Ferrari, I think it was a mixture of poor decision making from the team, poor decision making from himself, and I really don't think his co-driver supported him enough. I really think Raikkonen should have done enough. I think Raikkonen only got one victory that I can remember from his time at Ferrari. Yeah, at USA. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, he's really not doing enough to help the team.
He was on vibes. He was on vibes.
Yeah, and
come on, man.
But this is the Scuderia. This is F1 heritage. They should be delivering that, and it's fair enough if they don't have the fastest car. Okay, but I remember very clearly in 2018 they had the best package. Like, that car was quick. It was quick, and it wasn't even quick in a straight line. It was quick in the corners as well.
Check this out, yeah. Ferrari cheated for Vettel, and they still couldn't deliver.
Listen,
they cheated. They had an illegal engine. The car was screaming like a banshee. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he still couldn't deliver. So this is what happened, man. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. Ferrari are a shit show. I'm not gonna mistake or even try to make allowances for them for what's been going on in the last 10 years, 15 years, even what they did to Alonso. But at one point you had the fastest car on the grid, yeah, if you're a 4-time world champion, I'm not trying to even say that he's better than Lewis or anything like that, but you need to be taking it all the way to the wire. You can't be losing the title challenge due to mental mistakes. This is not something that I can understand if it was the team that messed up and stuff like that. Even when I think about 2017, even more, I feel like the car started to break down towards the end of the season. There was a lot of retirements, Ferrari, stuff like that.
There was in Malaysia they retired, and in Japan they retired. Or no, they had a poor car. Like the car was breaking on them throughout the race.
No, because this is what's happened. I heard that they had to accelerate all the developments on the car because because of the mistakes earlier on the season. So it started to mess up the car, all these additions. Because Vettel was making these mistakes in like Baku and stuff like that, and the earlier races in that season, they had to like fast forward the development of the car and use more tokens to do more in-season developments. And then the car started to break down. So his mental mistakes leads to the car breaking down later on down the line, and then saying, "Oh, Ferrari's got reliability issues." There wasn't reliability issues at the beginning of the season when you was winning races and you and Lewis was going back to back. But then you started to make mental mistakes, and then there we have it. So for Vettel, it's going to be funny. This Helmut Marko today said he should have retired or just took a break from F1 instead of going to.
He would say that, wouldn't he? He would say that.
Dr. Helmut Marko, the absolute madman. He's a mad. He reminds me of Dr. Robotnik or something. He's a madman. But he might be right, because I don't think he's mentally there right now.
Yeah,
to be driving in an F1 car, and he needs to take a break.
So I suppose just to finish up on this topic, I want to come to you, Kwame. How do you see him doing at Racing Point then? How do you see him doing?
It's an interesting question because Racing Point, so Aston Martin, as they are now as well. They've had a poor start to the season. They've had a poor start, but I mean, like you said, it's just a start. So I don't know how they're going to remedy the car. I think all depends. I think this season is going to be a very mid season. I think they may get the like 8-9 spot, in the points. But I think for them, their best bet is next year, 2022, with the regulation changes. You got Papa Show putting a lot of money into the team and trying to build some new headquarters. Build new headquarters. They've got all these sponsors, all this infrastructure. There's rumors that Toto might go from Mercedes to there. We don't know how true it is. So I think that's his best bet. And all depends on the car. All depends on the team. If they try to base it around for him or base it around for Lance. I don't see him personally winning another championship, personally. I personally don't see it. I don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
to be honest,
for another 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a championship Vettel probably on the back of his first race seems a stretch right now. Guys, any final thoughts on Vettel's time at Ferrari before we go on to the next segment?
I just want to add to Kwame's point and say Stroll has a better chance of winning the championship than Vettel right now.
Yeah, Daddy's boy. Yeah,
Daddy's boy.
We'll see. We'll see how it does.
They put him in the number one car. He did mind games.
Tactics.
They said, we'll put Vettel on the second seat. Stroll's number one driver at Aston Martin now. It's peak.
Oh, good. Yeah, let's see how Vettel does at Aston Martin. Stand corrected, Aston Martin.
He's wearing.
I'm wearing the racing green polo right now. So I apologize for that. Lawrence Stroll. Anyway, so Sky Sports this week released an image in which they looked at some of the previous world champions as well as the most popular podiums, and there was a lot of debate in the group chat. And I suppose, there was some key entries in there. Now, for everyone's awareness, they went through some of the most common podium combinations in history. So with 12 appearances, they had Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel. Tied with 12 appearances for some of the wiser heads out there was Schumacher, Hakkinen, Coulthard. On 13 appearances, it was Webber, Vettel, Alonso. So that's probably looking at that 2011 to 2013 time. And then you had 14 appearances, Hamilton, Rosberg, Vettel. So looking at, before 2016. And then more recently, you have Hamilton, Verstappen and Bottas, who also have the most appearances at 14. So instead of going into each one, I just want to get, guys, your take on some of the memorable moments from that time. So let's start in chronological order for this one. There was Schumacher, Hakkinen and Coulthard that had 12 appearances. Schumacher had an amazing Ferrari car during that time, and let's not forget that silver McLaren, which was truly remarkable. Give me your take on that time, Mahad. So Schumacher, Hakkinen and Coulthard had 12 appearances on the podium.
Yeah, it was basically them days. I'm an old head. Them days was Michael Schumacher versus McLaren, and it was tight a lot. Mika Hakkinen, my guy, one of my favorite drivers of all time, took 2 from him. I know one of them was a leg break from Michael Schumacher, but he was already ahead on points before he broke his leg. So
he was. He was.
But it was absolute domination just by those 3 drivers there in that period of time. Michael Schumacher obviously winning titles as well, but it was absolutely, like, I don't think other people even had a chance those days. It was always those guys, even in qualifying as well. From what I remember, it was absolute domination, and it was 2 drivers that were like at their peak going head to head. Coulthard underrated, I'm not gonna lie.
Very, very good driver. Yeah, very, very
obviously your teammate's McLaren, so he ain't winning no titles, but he was a very, very good number 2 in that time. You know what I mean? So and he deserved all the podiums that he got. So it was a very, very interesting time. Michael Schumacher, the GOAT of that period. 7 world titles, absolute dominant. Surprised he didn't appear. I think he didn't. He only appeared once on these lists, didn't he?
He only appeared once. Yeah, he only appeared once. Yeah.
I think that's more because of the number 2s and the number 3s weren't really cutting it in the mid 2000s.
Definitely, yeah. So I think on that point, like, you know what, Mahad, I remember it so well. It was 98, 99, 2000, and I think even a bit of 2001. I mean, that just reminds me of the late Murray Walker. Honestly, just his commentary on Mika Hakkinen, on Michael Schumacher, on David Coulthard just has so many flashbacks. Epic races, Sunday afternoon, sat there in front of the TV, just glued to the screen. Just amazing times. That for me was just an incredible racing period. It's really what got me into racing as well. That will always hold a special place in my heart. I want to touch on what's joint top with 14 appearances, and that is Hamilton, Rosberg, and Vettel. Now, this obviously would have been in 2016 and before. What do you remember from that period? So just the turn of the turbo hybrid era. So I'm going to come to you on this, Chris. What do you sort of pick out from that moment in time?
That it was Mercedes dominance for Hamilton, Rosberg when we 1 and 2, and then Vettel when he got to Ferrari in 2015 and 2016, they really picked up from where they were. So Vettel was really driving those Ferraris really well. They had no chance of the championship. It was just about picking up the odd race win. So that's what I kind of remember. It's I remember him just being the 3rd guy there, just happy to be there. We're not fighting the Mercedes. We're here to be number 2, the best number 2, and be ready to be number 1 further down the line. So that's how close it was for Vettel. He was there for the vibes. He was the one serious kind of half serious car and team around there.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we've been doing some analysis on Vettel, especially in this pod, but it's also worth mentioning that in this podium combinations that were released, he's actually appeared 3 times. So you got to put a lot of respect on his name, because he has done very well to also get onto the podium. So you got to also give credit where credit is due. Kwame, so looking at this list, you do have Vettel that's represented in, three times, and I want to come to you for his time at Red Bull, where he was dicing with Webber, Vettel, dicing with Webber and Alonso. He wasn't dicing with himself, although he has done that at Ferrari a couple of times, diced with himself, and it's ended up and it's sometimes ended up in the gravel trap. But when he was dicing with Webber and Alonso, what would you make of that time? So like the early, the 2011 to 2013 season.
I think it just shows how dominant he was in that period, and how everything was kind of connected up for him. I think we spoke that earlier, how with him, he needs every piece of the puzzle in his team to be right. So he needs the car to be right with him still, and he needs to be kind of the main guy in the team. And it just summed up in the results, because in that season, again, he got 13 wins compared to Webber's 0 in 2013, which, like, we get on the Bottas a lot, but I don't think Hamilton's even had the numbers against Bottas, and he had the most wins in the season in that year as well, which is insane. And then a same thing again happened in 2011, where he had 11-1 wins. So it just shows how competitive and how dominant that Red Bull car was in them 2 seasons alone. And even the seasons where, 2010, 2012, where they should have just won straight away, but they didn't. They still were competitive enough to get into the podium show. So it shows how good that car was. Even shows how decent Red Bull was as well, because in that 2010 season, he was competing for the championship with Alonso up until that final race in Abu Dhabi, where I'm not sure if people remember, but you had Alonso getting hauled behind Petrov. You had Webber bottled the race and fell win. So it shows how dominant he was in that period, essentially.
Yep, definitely. And yeah, as I said earlier, I want to give credit where credit's due to Vettel, and it does take something to get onto the podium, and clearly his number of appearances on there speak for themselves. So I think we've touched on all of them, apart from the current one. So 14 appearances stands Hamilton, Bottas, and Verstappen. Now, I'm just looking through the list. There is at least 2. Yeah, there's 2 world champions in all of those categories. Now, on the top one, you only have 1 world champion, and that's Lewis Hamilton. Let me ask you now, Antz, can you ever see Verstappen or Bottas becoming a world champion?
Bottas, 100% no from
no.
me.
That's a no then. I basically meant to say, can you see Verstappen becoming a world champion?
Yeah, I think Bottas's time in a championship winning car is rapidly coming to an end. As for Max, he's got a long career ahead of him. I think he's going to be a multiple world champion. I don't know when. I don't know if it'll be at Red Bull, but 100%, I think he's got what it takes.
Yeah, it seems like he's just got to channel a bit more racecraft, maybe have a bit, he's got the car now. Hopefully he can kick on and do a bit better this year, get closer to the Mercedes. And then, obviously it remains to be seen whether he wins a title at Red Bull or not. Guys, that is all that we have time for today. Please, please, please hit the subscribe and like button. We really, really appreciate the support. Follow us on Twitter at Pitstop Fracas, and we will be back next week with some more F1 content for you. Peace.
Peace.